Yes, Vaishali, we are live.
Yay.
Yes. All right. Hey everyone, greetings from India. This is Harjot Singh Guliani once again on It's Your Live show. And this time, this show is going to be really amazing. Of course, other shows were amazing also, but this time it's going to be something different which you might not have even heard of. Now, what's that? Have you ever thought of or have you ever heard about something seeing in future or speaking to the infinite intelligence or getting guidance from the universe? I'm sure you must have heard about all these terms, but today we have an expert all the way from San Francisco who has studied it. Please welcome Vaishali. Vaishali, welcome to the show. It's your live show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I am glad to have you here.
Yeah,
All
it's nice
right,
to be here.
Vaishali.
It was long time in the works and finally we are here.
Yes. So, Vaishali, you are a psychic and you
Yes.
help people with business. Now, business is very logical. Psychic people don't understand. Of course, it is logical or it is beyond logic. I have no idea. But people, what people don't understand, they call it like it is not logical, right? Because they are not able to understand it. They are not able to understand the science behind it. So when I asked you, Vaishali, what do you do? And you said that I am a psychic. Now, first of all, I want to ask you, what is the real meaning of psychic?
Psychic is somebody who can actually see through the future and who can
Uh-huh.
predict what's going to happen. And also think of it as somebody who can see through space and see through time. So if you can see through space, then I use this ability to actually locate lost objects. So for instance, once my parents had lost like a key or something. So
Uh-huh.
without actually physically being in that space, I could
Uh-huh.
tell them where the key is located. Or a client of mine had lost some jewelry and she is somewhere like 2000 miles away from me. So
Uh-huh.
without physically being in her space or in her home, I could kind of point to her where she could find that. So that's one thing, that's seeing through space. And
Uh-huh.
then seeing through time is, think about it as time travel, which means that you can essentially travel through time and see what's going to happen in the future, and then
Uh-huh.
depending on that, you can actually change the direction of things if you don't like what's coming.
Wow. Like I have heard people saying that everything is destined and it is absolutely like it is written somewhere that this is going to happen or that is going to happen. And you give me another perspective, and I am calling it as a perspective because I am open to it, right? So I am giving it a fair chance, right? So you are giving me a perspective. If I come to know that this is going to happen in the future, then I could change myself, and that seems really logical also, and that seems really valid also. But the thing is, how you can see into the future, and what does the future seeing look like?
So it's a long story. I think I'll share a little bit about how I got started doing this. And what
Uh-huh.
happened is I actually was consulting a lot of psychics when I was having some problems related to my work.
Uh-huh.
And none of them could tell me what was going on. And I said, forget it. You guys have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm going to figure this out myself.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to figure it out myself. And I
Uh-huh.
actually come from a science background. So I have a master's degree in engineering and I used to design computer chips. So my brain is or was wired very scientifically to look at things very logically. And I used the same approach when I started studying the readings. And what I would do is I would test a little bit of the reading, see how it plays out, and then test a little bit, see how it plays out. And then after testing for like 3-4 days, I kind of figured that, okay, this is actually something that is working. So then I went on to do more tests. And then after that, I started reading for clients, and I have like a lot of client examples. So the clients started coming back to me and saying that, yes, this happened, yes, that happened. And that's how I started playing with it and got started. Then I went on to do more tests.
All right. So I'm just checking the volume of this broadcast because yesterday I have done one live, so I couldn't get the audio there.
Okay.
So it was a reality check only. So yes, I was listening to you. So you had really like a list of clients for which you can give case studies. But I'm curious to know, like, what does it really take to understand this thing? Like it looks like a magic to me.
Yeah, so I think I was like in the same space. So let me go back a little bit and give you an example. I was like in the same space that, I was in a space where I said, I don't think that anybody can predict the future. But I had already overcome a part of it because I had also studied astrology before that. And so this was like a different method of doing it, a different way of doing it, this particular skill that I was trying to develop. So what I said is, I'm going to start testing this out. So I said, I'll test it for the period of an hour. And if it works in an hour, then I can extend it over like half a day or a day and kind of go from there. And if I cannot see the results in an hour, then it probably doesn't make any sense because, it has to work. So what I would do is I would go to the gym in the mornings and I would be there for around an hour or so. So I would just like do a short reading on what's going to happen in the gym. And I would come back and then compare what I had predicted with what actually happened. So it was all very scientific. Like I would look at it, I would write down like what this means and what is supposed to happen, and then how it actually played out. So after 3-4 days, I kind of got the idea. You don't need like that many data points to say whether or not it's real. So after 3-4 days, I kind of got the idea. I'm like, oh my God, this is actually working. I said, how can that be? I said, how can the future be predicted? So I said, today I'm going to change it. Like whatever the reading shows, I'm just going to reverse the reading so that, I'm right and the reading is wrong. And that would make me so happy. So what happened is I would have like 2 different days in the gym. One would be like a cardio day and one would be like a weight training day. So on the weight training days, I would just like either lift weights or I would go to the weight training class. There was like a group class long before COVID. This is an old story, long before COVID. So that day was my cardio day. And on the cardio days, I would either run or I would go on the Stairmaster. So essentially, there were only 2 choices, like running or Stairmaster. So I said, okay, if the reading shows that I'm going to run, then I'll do the Stairmaster. And then if the reading shows I'm going to do the Stairmaster, then I'm going to run. So this way, the reading is wrong and I am right. So do you want to guess what happened? Because what the reading showed is no matter what I did, I would be right and the reading would be right.
You would be right and the reading would be right.
Yeah. So, and I had 2 choices. I could either run or I could go on the Stairmaster.
Then what would happen?
You tell me. What do you think? What do you think the reading showed? That both of us would be right no matter what I did.
So it could be that you did both on that same day.
You're kind of close, but not quite there. No, it was, I was only going to do either or. So I was either going to do the Stairmaster or I was going to run.
Uh-huh. So what happens? I'm just curious to know about it.
So what happened is the reading showed that there's a woman at crossroads, meaning that I could decide whether I wanted to run or I wanted to go on the Stairmaster. So this
Uh-huh.
way, if I'm at crossroads, that means I am actually giving the direction or determining the direction. And then
Mhm.
this way, the reading is right and I'm also right. Which kind of,
Mhm.
I wanted to tie this a little bit to what I said earlier, that if you know something, you can change it. So this is like a perfect example that, you know, I knew I was going to do one of the two and I was trying to change things. So just by knowing it, you know, I can influence it. You can only influence or change things if you know what's coming. If you don't know, then, you know, it just comes. Does that make sense?
I really like this idea that you can change or influence things when you know what is coming. If we are not aware of it, then we cannot do anything about it. But Vaishali, like you were an engineer mind at that time and you tested it for an hour and then you decided that, okay, if it works for an hour, then you will try it for a day. I am not an engineer mind, but I am a human engineer. But still, I do work with magic also, and I do work with science also. And when I say science, so I believe that miracle is a science itself. It's just when we don't know the science behind the miracle, it becomes miracle. And when we could see that, okay, A happens, then B happens, then C happens, then D happens, like our outer world is the projection of our inner world. Now I understand this concept inside out and I'm studying it every day. So this is a science for me. This is not a miracle for me. And I can make it others understand also in a very simple words with a very examples, and not my life examples, but a scientific examples, right? So I would like to know from you, like you said, you read something. So my first question is where you have read. Like, is there any book is there, or you have read it on some wall, or what is that?
So that is actually the method of divination, and there are various different. There's like I don't want to say thousands, but there are like hundreds and hundreds of methods of divination, and
Mhm.
each method has its own pros and cons. Astrology is like one way to look at things, but when I was studying astrology, it was very difficult to kind of give the daily or hourly or weekly kind of a thing in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
So I actually resorted to looking at different techniques, and this
Mhm.
one was the one I actually found that worked for me was a particular different kind of cards. So have you heard of tarot cards?
I am just thinking about that word only because when you
Okay.
shared with me that you read something, so I was not sure about it. That's why I didn't ask you straight away tarot cards. But yes, I have heard about tarot cards.
So this is similar to tarot cards, but it's a different type of cards that originated in, depending on whom you ask, Germany or France. So
Mhm.
let's say they are of European origin, and so I read those cards, and what I can do with it is I can make very futuristic predictions, or I can actually, like I said, see through things, or see through time, or see through the future, just like I did for my running versus Stairmaster thing. And then once I know what's going to happen, then I can make a choice of, do I really want to go that route or do I want to go a different route? It's just like using a GPS. When you are going, let's say I want to go from my home to the airport, and I look at the GPS, and the GPS shows me that, hey, listen, you know, if you go on your regular route, there is like an accident, so it's going to take you 10 minutes longer. So then I can just plan my journey to go on a different route so that I avoid that accident. So it's something similar, but except for doing it in space, we are kind of doing it in time. So think of it as more like a time travel kind of a thing.
Wow, Vaishali. I'm I still have no idea what I am listening to, but I am getting the idea and I'm curious to know more about it. Of course, we are going to talk about how we can use it in business and how you have used it. But before that, let me be little skeptical about it. Let me be little skeptical about it, right? I want you to ask what is the like if there is a card, like this is a card and you have a set of cards. Now I am a layman, I don't know anything. There is a set of cards and you choose some cards and you see something and you give me your, I would say, reading. So my first question to you is
Mm-hmm.
if if three people will read my card, will they give me the same input or they give me different input?
That's a great question. I really love that. So
Thank you.
what happens is most likely you will get three different answers. And the essence of it, however, is going to be, or depending on whom you're asking, it also depends on which three people you're asking. But the essence of it will remain the same. Think of it as using a language. Both of us are speaking in English, right? And the
Mhm.
alphabet has 26 or 26
Letters.
letters, 26 letters in English language.
Mhm.
And using these 26 letters, people have formed words, and certain words mean something, right?
Mhm.
And people combine these words in sentences to mean
Mhm.
something. And then,
Mhm.
based on that, the other person is going to interpret what the sentence means. So, let's say that you see this dog on the street, and you ask three people. So, one person will say that, oh, I saw a dog on the street. And then the other person will say, I saw this brown dog who was just like doing something on the street. And the
Uh-huh.
third person will say that, yeah, I kind of saw something brownish. I'm not sure what it was because I was too far away. So they're all giving you the same information, but based on their perspective. So in
Uh-huh.
a reading, it's going to be the same way. You just have like a set of alphabets and then you combine it, and then based on who is looking at it or how closely they are looking at it, one of the other things is also how closely you look at it. So if you want somebody to, like, someone will say, oh, I saw a dog and his nose was so beautiful, which means that they got really close to the dog. Okay. And then the other one will say, oh, I just saw like this brown blob, so I have no idea what it was because I was too far. So depending on what information you're looking for, if you're looking for the features of the dog, then you're probably going to talk to this particular person who's closer to the dog, who's describing the features. And if you're just
Mhm.
looking for a general piece of information, then you'll say, oh, I just saw like a brown blob. So in a reading, it's
Mhm.
going to be the same thing. The more refined you are, the more details you can get. Like, I give out a lot of details to my clients. I give them descriptions of places, of people, and all those things. And then, somebody else may or may not be able to do it. So it's all dependent on, your how much deeper or how deep you want to get into the subject, which means how close you are to the dog in this particular example.
Super. Let me be more skeptical now.
Okay.
How a set of cards can tell about my future? Like any science behind it?
Yeah. So there is actually. So this I can answer this question, but it depends on who is listening. And based on that, they can either choose to believe or not choose to believe. But the
Uh-huh.
reality is that if you look at science, or time is
Mhm.
actually not linear. So even though we live in a space where time is perceived to be linear, time is actually not linear. So that's the reason I was testing those things during my early days when I started doing this. And that's one of the main premise behind it, that time is actually not linear. And time actually exists in dimensions, and the dimensions are like past, present, and future. So technically, you can actually travel in any dimension. So if I'm here, I could travel in this dimension, that dimension. So if I'm in the present, then I could travel in the future dimension and see what's to come. And I could also travel in the past dimension and I could tell you what has happened, and I could tell you like a lot of details. And one of the best uses of this I've seen is actually in terms of making decisions, like should I go this way or that way, and what would happen. For instance, I've used it up for myself. What would happen if I go to this conference versus I don't go? Like, what am I missing out on? So those are some of the practical ways I've actually used it for myself as well as for a lot of my clients.
So the premise is that you can go to past also, present also, and future also. It's like x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis.
Yeah, exactly. It's like three different axes, X, Y, and Z, and you can actually be in the point, like the intersection of all the three axes is like a point. And that point is our present time or present moment. And by being in the present moment, you can actually see in all different dimensions. I was going to say something, but I forgot. It was really good, but I kind of lost track of it.
So you can say that. Please go ahead.
When the thought comes back to me, I'll come back to it. But right now,
All
you
right.
can go on.
It happens with me also that sometimes information comes to our mind. That is the beauty of having an evolved mind, I would say, because it is coming from our experiences, or it's coming from the realizations or awareness we have. It's not like something we have not learned, we have crammed, or something we have by hearted. It's not like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Can I be more skeptical now?
Yeah, go for it. I love your questions. I've been to a lot of interviews, but nobody has asked such unique questions that I've had to drill down and dig down so much deeper and explain the concept. But that's good because now I can post this on my website.
Wow. I am going to cut a clip of this broadcast because you have complimented me for asking me my questions ability, like questioning ability.
Yes.
Right. So,
That's
Vaishali,
actually very important. You just brought me back to one of the things I was going to say, that think about it this way. Now that you can see through things, let's assume it's almost like time is transparent and you can see through things.
uh-huh.
So what limits you is your ability to be able to ask the questions, because the reading is only as good as the question that has been asked. So if you do not phrase the question properly, or if you do not ask it properly, then you will get the information, but it's based on what you asked. So that was like the very first thing I would do when I got started, like 6 years ago. When I got started, like I would just work with the clients on refining the question, and I would spend more time refining the question than actually reading it, because as I started doing it, the interpretation was a little bit easy, or it became easier with time. It's just like anything, when you start running, in the beginning, it's very difficult to even run like a quarter of a mile or half a mile. But when you start running 5 miles, 10 miles, then it's like a joke. So in the same way, when I started reading in the beginning, it was, of course, I have to flex the muscle, develop the muscle, figure out, what's happening. But as I kind of went into the phase where I'm running 5 miles and 10 miles, that part was easy. Then I would just help them phrase the question properly. And even today, like whenever clients come to me, I spend more time defining their question, so that they actually get the information they are looking for versus what they are trying to kind of ask in a roundabout manner.
Sometimes they are not just aware of the question. And I remember my coach said me once that there is a reason behind a reason, and there is a question behind a question.
Absolutely. And you can dig that out. And well, at least I have developed an ability to dig the question out and then look at it, and that will lead to the next question, and so on. So the clients that have been working with me, So some of the clients that started working with me like 6 years ago, they're actually still with me. That's a long time, but they still work with me. And for
Mhm.
them, it's a lot easier because they have been with me on this journey of how I refine and phrase the questions. So they
Mhm.
kind of either know what to ask or how to ask, or they just tell me what they're looking for and I ask the question for them. But yeah, even today, I focus more on the question than anything else.
So can you give me any example for that? Yes, I do understand, but for the viewers, let us like, can we make it simplify for them? Like any example that client asks you some question and then you ask them something and then you refine that question. Do you remember any instance?
I probably could, but why don't we just start with you? Why don't you ask me a question? I'll just help you phrase it. You can ask it for yourself or for somebody else.
When we were backstage, I asked you one question that can you see my future? Now I don't know if it is like you want to do it on a live telecast or not, but that's one of the question I have.
No, so I understand that question, but ask me something as though you were a client and you were coming to me for asking for information or looking for information or looking for clarity. What would you like? What kind of a question would you ask? Or you can ask on somebody else's behalf based on some of the past jobs you have done or some conversations you've had with someone. So just pick like a random question and I'll show you how we can hone it down.
And now I am absolutely flat. I don't have any question, but let me let me think about. All right, so back in 2020, when I was clear on my purpose a little bit, but I was not courageous enough to get into that. So I was thinking that should I do business or should I go into the corporate job? And even if I get corporate job or not, what I am good at. So that's the question. Should I get into a business or should I get into a corporate job?
Okay, so that's a great question. I love
Uh-huh.
that. So essentially, what you're doing is you're kind of looking at two choices. And one of the choices, so it's just like, let's just go back to the airport example. Let's say I want to go to the airport and I know
Mm-hmm.
my destination is the airport. And because I can see through space and like I have this favorite route I go through where I can just breeze through the traffic because I know the route in my sleep, but
Uh-huh.
there's an accident and I cannot go, so I am forced to choose a different route or a different means to go there because I have like a fixed purpose, which is I have to get there at a specific time, otherwise the plane is going to leave without me. So when you
Uh-huh.
say that I want to go either to the business versus a corporate job, what is the destination that you're looking for? Like in my particular case, the destination is like the airport, and I have to get there by, let's say, 8 o'clock because my flight leaves in an hour. And after 8, all the security is closed, so there's no way I can make the flight. So my constraint is that I have to be at the airport by 8 o'clock. And I could just do whatever I wanted. I could take the train, I could take a cab, I could drive, but I have to kind of figure out like how do I go there to reach there by 8. So what is the destination that you want to go to by either doing a business or a corporate kind of job?
You are asking me my like what is the why behind it, huh?
Yeah, like what's the purpose? Like where are you trying to get to? Like are you looking for a particular amount of salary? Are you looking for financial gains? Are you looking for I don't know what you could be looking
So
for, so
there
I need
there
to
there are
understand
two
that.
things. There are two things, right? So since I am into freelance business, so freelance business works for 100 days. So
Okay.
yes, I do make a decent amount of money, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just don't work. So at that time, now I have started working on my business. At that time, I used to work for 150 days a year, and another 150 days were not that much happening. I was not doing any FB show. I didn't have any podcast. I was not doing any live video, so I was not doing anything. So I was living for 150 days and I was not living for another 150 days. So at the same time I was looking for like a decent amount of money which comes into my bank account every month. It's okay if it is a routine job. So that is the purpose behind looking for a corporate job.
Okay, so I think what I read from it, or what I understand from your question, is you want like a fixed amount of recurring income coming in every month, right?
At that time, I wanted that. It was in February 2020.
Okay. Yeah. So you just were looking to get some sort of a fixed recurring income coming there. And
Absolutely.
let's assume for a second that you could get the income either by doing the corporate work or
Mhm.
by having your own business. Then what would be
Uh-huh.
like the next thing that you'd be looking for? Let's say you're looking for a certain number. Um, let's say like $10,000 a month or something. I just picked a random number. So let's say that you're looking for 10K, okay, and you could
Yes.
get it from your corporate work or you could get it from your business. Then what would be like something else that you'd be looking for if you could get it by both the means?
So after that, I want three things in my life, and that is integral part of my personality. I have found it out. That is success, joy, and peace. And when I say success, joy, and peace, that means I am doing something which is helping others, and they
Mm-hmm.
are giving me rewards for that. I am doing something which is helpful for others and which is impacting their life, which is making them better in one way or the other. So from there, I will get joy and peace, right? And
So you're
when
looking
I,
for more happiness, and that it's rewarding, so that people will kind of either compliment you, or you'll feel it in your heart that you did something that was really nice or really good kind of a thing.
yeah, my service is a part of that thing. So my service itself is a part of that thing. So success, joy, and peace. Even I have written one book. These three words has come in that book for many times, because I want my reader to take to the space of success, joy, and peace. Now people don't even understand that. Sometimes they are not able to understand that joy and peace can come with success. They thought it otherwise. So if you ask me that if I have to do everything, or if I could do everything in life, then I would go for success, joy, and peace.
Yeah, so I think that what I would do is, to that particular question that you had posed, which is whether I should go for a corporate job or whether I should have my own business, I would kind of drill down like a layer more. And I would say that, let's say that I could get like the success, joy, and peace with each of the options. Then there is like something else that you're looking for, because let's say that you've established the recurring income through either of the sources, whatever is your
Mhm.
amount.
Mhm.
Then it's just going to be like then you're kind of looking at some more details. And I'll just kind of give you an example. Like I would probably say that, hey, listen, if you go to this particular job, then you're going to be, say, working so many hours, and it could lead to something much bigger. Whereas if you go to this particular business and you work so many hours and you get this recurring income, you'll probably meet this another person who will kind of take you to a higher level in your business, or help you kind of propagate your message or your book or your podcast into other people's audiences. So I think then it becomes a little bit more about like what exactly it is that you are trying to achieve. Because of course everybody needs money to survive, so everybody has to make a living. So of course the first level of the question is always about making a living. But once that part of it is satisfied, then you have to kind of go deeper into what it is that you're exactly looking for, and which is going to be a better route. Because yeah, let's say that the making a living part is satisfied, then each of these are totally different routes, because you're going to meet totally different people if you go to work versus if you have a business. So then I think you have to kind of layer it down and
Mhm.
just find out like which is the path which works better for you. And that's something that you can look at and you can tell. So think about it like, if you close your eyes and you can time travel, and you can go down one path and you can see what's going to happen if you do your job, and on the other path you can see what's going to happen if you do your business. And then there are more levels or layers to the question in terms of what it is that you're actually looking to get beyond the income, and which one is more consistent with the way you want to go about.
Now that's completely a science for me. You are asking me to look into the future, and
No, I gave you like a thought process of how it works, but that's really what I would be doing. That I would be looking. So the first thing I would look at is, like which one is easier to establish in terms of income. Now, let's say that it shows that the business is not going to take off for 6 months or a year, then it's a very easy choice that, you just go this route because you need to build things up until you can get that part of income. But now, once you do that and you're to a point where your business is producing almost as much income as your job or higher, then you have a choice as to what you want to do, right? So then you can look at different things in terms of think of it as projecting in the future, and you can see how things are going to play out and what it is that you would like to change.
so can I share my learnings here?
Yeah, definitely.
So whatever process you have shared with me, now if you ask me to do this process, I could understand it like this, that you are making me so present by asking me the questions and asking me to look into the future. So actually it is imagination, and
Yes.
imagination is the real way of living the life. All the big goals, all the big desire, all the big dreams are a product of imagination, right? And not logic. And when we decide that we are going to go there, then we find the logic to go there. The route is there. So this seems very okay for me. But if you tell me that you will do this stuff for me, like you will close your eyes, is it? You will close your eyes and you will look into my future. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, actually, that's something that can be done. It's like all a matter of training and practice. So I have a podcast. It's called The Uncanny Link. And
Uh-huh.
the goal of the podcast or the premise behind it is to bridge the gap between physics and metaphysics. And I talk about all these things on the podcast. I talk about how we have 5 human senses, which is the sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. And then we also have spirit senses, which is we are a spirit in a body, and a spirit also has senses which are equivalent to the human senses. And because the spirit does not have any bounds, so just like our body is bounded by space and time, I can only be here. If I want to kind of see what's happening in the other room, I have to physically go and walk in there. But as far as the spirit is concerned, it does not have the bounds of space and time. So just as a spirit, I could see what's happening in that room, which is essentially like sort of traveling through space kind of a thing. And our spirit already has those senses. So I talk about it on my podcast episodes. I think it's titled Five Senses Are Not Enough. And I also go into some other details, like very, very fine details on when people write messages and they actually mean something, but they're writing something else. And you can actually read the energy through that message, and you can tell what that person is actually saying or trying to say through the message, even though he's saying something else. And I kind of developed this ability because the teacher I was studying with him via email. And after we would exchange emails back and forth, it was almost I could like hear him talking to me based on those sentences. And all of us process so many emails in a day. But when I was studying this reading, my teacher was actually in Europe, and I was studying via email. So that's how I just learned how to read the energy behind the words. And I have an episode on my podcast. It's called Written Words Whisper. And I show you like how you can actually read the energy behind the written words, like what exactly it is. And I mean, you can read a lot of energy. You can just read the energy by looking at somebody's face. And if you have read that person before, then you can essentially translate what they are thinking and what they are trying to tell you without physically exchanging the words or communication. So it's more like a spirit to spirit sort of a communication. I have an episode on that. I forgot the name. I think maybe it's called Claircognizance Demystified. So I have a lot
Superb,
of episodes. Yeah, you can
superb.
listen
So
to all
even
of it.
yes, so even if you want to know more about physics and metaphysics, so she is a computer engineer who used to design chips, and now she is used to design the future of people or a look into the future and the Uncanny Link podcast. So we will put the link also here in the comment box after the this broadcast will be over. Get back to that question, should I get into the corporate or should I go with my business? So any answer for that?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like beyond the finances, we have to see like how things would be for the future. And then there is another layer, which is like, are you just looking for a short period, like 3 to 6 months? Are you looking for a longer period, like 6 months to a year? And like, what would the outcome be, or what would come out of it? Like, it's a different route. I'll give you an example. So
Mhm.
back in February of 2020, I was debating whether or not I should go to this conference because I had just come home from another conference. This is when people used to meet in person, and I was supposed to go to another conference in San Diego, and I was kind of debating because I was tired. I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to take the flight. So I would look at the reading, and every time I would look at it, then it would show me that I should go, and it would show me what would happen if I went.
Uh-huh.
And the long story short, I decided to go. And because I decided to go, it changed a lot of things for me in terms of meeting so many people, which I would have never met if I had not gone there, and then launching the podcast, which actually came out from a group from that particular conference,
Uh-huh.
and also just in terms of expanding my network. So
Uh-huh.
it wasn't a question of whether or not I should go to the conference. There were a lot of other implications that would play out in the future if I had not gone. So that's really like that's another example of how you can use this thing.
Hmm. But even if we don't look at the metaphysics part of this episode, that you should go or not, even I would say you must go, because when you go, you would create the possibilities. This is the like a mindset or attitude of a person who wants to do something in his or her life, right? So when you go there, there is a possibility of getting something. When you don't go there, there is guarantee of getting nothing.
Yeah, but
So
I could spend that time somewhere else and do something else, and I could get some other result, right? In this particular case, I didn't have another conference to go to, but you could just use it as debating between two different conferences and which one should I go to, that, I'll kind of get to my
uh, then
next step.
then it would be like then I would understand it more. But yes, that's also a valid example. But yes, if I have two conferences, then I have heard someone saying that if you really want to go to one part of the life, you are definitely going to miss the other part of the life.
Yes.
And I have mentioned it in my book also somewhere, that if you want to be a teacher, then you are not going to be an astronaut or engineer or a doctor or lawyer. So now you are not supposed to think what you don't want to become. You are only supposed to think what you want to become, because that is one. And if you don't want to become something, that will be many, right? Or
Yeah.
the other way out is you decide that what you really don't want, because this is the beauty of life, that we are not robots and life is not infinite, it is finite in number, right? So if we go one way, we have to leave the other way, and you should be in habit of choosing it, right? But here we are talking about metaphysics, and there it's not about choosing, it's about seeing in the future and then choosing.
Yeah,
Now that's
makes
really interesting concept. So you must be like, let me be skeptical once again. So a client comes to you, and after looking at that client, you must be like sure about that this is going to, prospect come to you, and by this way you must be sure enough that okay, this is going to be my client, this is not going to be my client. Has it ever happened to you?
yeah. Well, I can tell. I can tell like just when I first talk to them, based on the type of questions they ask. Some people they just want to know like one thing, and then some other people they are looking for more deeper meaning or more deeper things. So I can pretty
Uh-huh.
much tell like which person is kind of what category, and based on the questions they ask, because now I have honed my ability to ask better questions and to frame them differently. So based on the type of questions clients ask, I can tell where they're going. Yeah, I can pretty much tell where they're going based on the type of questions they ask.
That is questioning, that is conscious thing, that is what you can do, what I can see, what I can relate to also. So it comes into coaching also, coaching practice, questioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
The quality of question, powerful questions. And but what is metaphysics like? Can you see, take a card and like, somebody comes to you and you want to know that is it a prospect, or will it become a client, or will it become a long term client? So you see
Yeah,
that.
so based
So
on
is
that, I can tell if somebody is going to be kind of a tire kicker, or they're going to become a client or a long-term client. Although I don't see those things for a lot of most of my clients, I never really ask those kind of questions. So
no,
I am
I
more
am just
interested.
asking you. I am asking you this for yourself. Like, did you ever use this? Because if I would have this power, I would definitely use it.
To whether or not they would become a long-term client.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I am actually not looking at it like that. I'm more interested in seeing how my predictions actually played out. So I actually am more happy when they come back and when they say, you had told me this last time, it actually happened. And I'm like, yes. So one of the girls, I'll give you an example. One of the girls, she was I think she asked something about meeting her future boyfriend or something. And then I told her about going on Instagram because it was showing a lot of stuff like that. So actually, she called back in a month or two and she said, I went on Instagram and actually that's how I met you. So I have a lot of stories like that.
All right. All right then. So if that could happen in real life, I could see that could happen in business also, because business is also a part of real life. So
Yeah, I'll give you one business example really quick. And so
yes, please.
this particular client, she was actually looking to put a bid on a contract, and
Uh-huh.
she was trying to put this bid for like 225,000, and
Uh-huh.
she was very nervous. She was like, I don't know if I should put this bid or not. I don't want to bid too high because then I'll lose the contract. If I bid too low, then I'm leaving money on the table. And I said, okay, let me look at it. And then I looked at it and I told her around 250, 260 would be the right number. So she put in a bid for like 260,000 and she actually ended up winning the contract. So that's a perfect example for how you can use it for your business in terms of negotiating.
But they must give you some two choices. It's not like a random choices.
No, she had the number. She had the 225. So she had that number in her mind. And she just wasn't sure whether that was like too high, too low, which way she should go, that kind of a thing.
So So Vaishali, I was just thinking that I met you like 40, 45 days ago, and then we were in process of scheduling this show and it never happened. And one day you sent me a message that where is my podcast or where is my slot, something like that. And I said, are you available on Saturday, 9 p.m.? You said, yes, I am available. And then we rescheduled it. So were you aware of all this stuff earlier?
No, so I don't look at each and every detail, but I think I saw you in the Facebook group and I'm like, oh my God, I never really did this show with him. Let me go back. But one of the reasons I was holding off is because my computer was having problems with StreamYard. So I said, let me just wait until I get the other one. So that was one of the reasons I was holding off.
All right, Vaishali. So I would like to say thanks to you for reminding me because even I was not sure about that this show will happen or not. But nowadays I used to do it like this only. No emails, no nothing else. It's like if somebody likes this show, they come in touch with me, conversation, and done. Because now I have only Saturdays and Sundays for the show. I have blocked it and
Okay.
evening time. So thank you so much, Vaishali. You have blown me, and I'm sure you have blown my viewers also. You got 11 hearts today. So
Oh,
congratulations
cool.
for that.
I didn't see
Yes.
them.
Even I don't know. So I call them as God because God is also invisible and you could only feel it. So you could only feel these hearts. Like I don't know who is there, who is not there, right? So thank you so much for joining on the show. And once again, this is Harjot Singh Guliani. It's time to take your leave with my Vaishali. And I'll see you next time on It's Your Live show where I used to be in conversation with lively people, lively conversations with the lively people to make you the next one. Keep watching It's Your Live show brought to you by Your Personality School, India's first online school of personality development. So, Vaishali, thank you so much. It's time to take the leave. Bye bye. Take care. So, it's time to take
Bye.
leave from Facebook.